Okay, good morning to everybody. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to our meeting entitled SKA in Spain, finally. Okay, this is the first thing, this is a celebration in the sense that I think this is the first workshop we are having after the news that Spain has become a new member of the SKA organization. And second, because we're going to make an overview of the science that the Spanish astronomers, Spanish scientists can contribute to SKA. And then I'm sure it's going to be a very positive meeting without any doubt. Let me just introduce you all the authorities that are together with us today. The first one is Rafael Rodrigo. He is the General Secretary of Coordination of Scientific Politics. Francisco Cuenca is the Mayor of Granada. Phil Lyman, the General Director of the SKA organization. María Inmaculada Ramos is the General Director of Universities of the regional government from the Junta Andalucía, but she finally couldn't come. Then Jesus Marcos, he is the Deputy Vice President of the National Research Council for Science and Technology. And then Vicente Martinez, that is there also. He is the coordinator of the Spanish RIA, the Red de Infraestructuras de Astronomía, that is, in fact, this is supporting this meeting along these days. And Inmaculada Figueroa, she is the General Vice Director for International Projects of the Ministry of Science and Innovation. Okay, the first speaker in this opening is going to be the Mayor of Granada, Francisco Cuenca, that is going to address to all the participants. Yeah, some words.
Good morning. Muy buenos días. Thank you for staying here. It's an honor for me and the city, but I prefer to speak in Spanish. Thank you. Darle las gracias, la bienvenida a nuestra ciudad y sobre todo trasladarle la importancia y la relevancia que tiene para Granada el que se desarrolle esta jornada de trabajo. Especialmente Phil, muchísimas gracias, thank you so much. Rafa, muchísimas gracias por vuestra apuesta, igual que el resto de infraestructura del CSIC, y sobre todo a esta casa que personalizó Anchón, el director, que se convierte en razones de prestigio y de orgullo para los granadinos. La relevancia creo que no tengo ni que trasladarla, por eso creo que es muy importante solamente que sean conscientes de lo que se está produciendo en esta casa para España, especialmente para Granada. Si a alguien le preguntan en el resto del mundo que conoce Granada, es muy posible que le digan que conoce la Alhambra, a Federico García Lorca y las tapas. Esta, además de ser una ciudad de la gastronomía, de la identidad cultural, del patrimonio, es una ciudad que genera ciencia, conocimiento y talento. A partir de ahí, estamos siendo capaces de marcar algunos hitos que empiezan a transformar la propia visión, a veces para los propios granadinos, de esta ciudad. El hecho de albergar el año que viene el congreso más importante en materia científica, el Business Forum, en octubre de 2020, y que supone también un espaldarazo a ese modelo de transformación basado en la transferencia de conocimiento, es un hito determinante. Está dentro de la estrategia europea ESFRI, que permite identificar a Granada como la sede del desarrollo del IFMIF-DONES, parte del acelerador de partículas, o el hecho, en muchos de los casos de hoy, celebrar, como otros casos, de celebrar la incorporación de España en el proyecto SKA, gracias a la coordinación de este centro, indica que el modelo de transformación se está de alguna manera materializando no solo para ser una ciudad cultural y turística, como yo les decía antes, sino además para generar una de las señas de identidad de las que nos sentimos más orgullosos, y para ello es necesario poner y situar a Granada en el mapa mundial, que es de ser una ciudad de la ciencia y del conocimiento. De forma coordinada, los centros de investigación, la Universidad de Granada, el agente tractor fundamental y todas las administraciones pusimos de acuerdo para que esta fuera calificada por el Ministerio, por el Gobierno de España, como ciudad de la ciencia y el conocimiento. Y va mucho más allá de una etiqueta, va a una pretensión, va buscando la pretensión no solo de ser reconocido, sino lo que es más importante, ser también, ¿por qué no?, un modelo de ciudad habitable, sostenible, y lo que es más importante, que aproveche y que haga del conocimiento y del talento que sale especialmente de nuestras universidades, en concreto hablo de la Universidad de Granada, el motor de transformación social y colectiva. Si además abordamos los retos del futuro desde esta tierra, pues mucho más razón de orgullo. Lourdes, muchas felicidades, gracias por el magnífico trabajo, a ti y a tu equipo y por supuesto a esta casa. Y les pido que disfruten de Granada, que conozcan también, si les dejan, aparte de disfrutar, que aprovechen esta ciudad, que además de ser una ciudad de la ciencia y del conocimiento, se disfruta también en la calle a través de la cultura, ¿por qué no de las tapas? Eso es así. Pero además, sobre todo, una magnífica temperatura de la que disfrutamos. Por tanto, bienvenido a la ciudad de la ciencia y del conocimiento. Gracias a esta casa por la magnífica tarea y tienen en su ayuntamiento pues un aliado más para seguir eso, situando a Granada en el mapa mundial de la ciencia y del conocimiento. Muchísimas gracias. Enjoy Granada.
Yeah, I would like just to remember some words that the mayor has said, in the sense that Granada is the city of science, has been nominated as such by the Spanish Ministry of Science, and it has been, in the city itself, is aiming at recognizing the scientific activities that are performed within our city as one of the values, of the added values of the city of Granada. Thanks a lot, in fact, for this effort. Okay, the next speaker is Rafael Rodrigo, General Secretary of Scientific Politics of the Ministry of Science and Innovation.
No, I don't need it.
Okay. Yeah, you have to.
For recording, okay, good.
For the streaming.
No problem. Let me start in Spanish, and then I will change. I will move to English. Come on. Many years. Sorry. Hace muchos años que no estaba aquí. Y, bueno, estuve de director de este instituto muchos años también. Entonces, para mí es un verdadero placer volver y ver que el instituto ya ha conseguido tener el mayor galardón de excelencia de este país y que va por una senda estupenda en buenas manos con el equipo directivo. Well, I've been moving this. Good morning, authorities, colleagues, and dear researchers. I want to thank you for this event that we opened today. España en SKA, Spain in the square millimeter array. Kilometers, sorry. Millimeters. First of all, I want to thank the work done by the IAA, Spanish Research Council, in order to organize this event, and in particular the effort of the Scientific Organizing Committee with representative of 9 or 10, I don't remember exactly, a Spanish institution. Dear Professor Alberdi, dear Anchon, thank you for having invited me to open this event, and please extend my gratitude to the organizing institution as well as to your team in designing this excellent program. I want also to thank Professor Phil Diamond. Thank you very much for your presence here today as Director General of SKA, and it's a great pleasure having you here with us one more time. You and the SKA office have been a great support of the coordination activities intended to foster the participation on Spain in this project. I would like to start my talk today saying that excellent research is only possible by the combination of the most advanced instrumentation and technologies with an intellectual and creative environment at the highest level. The larger research infrastructure guarantee this condition and play an increasingly important role as necessary tools to carry out research on the frontier of knowledge. Spain is a member of the most important large research infrastructure in Europe. CER, ESA, ISO, INVIEL, Fusion for Energy, ESRF, and is scientific associated partner of ILL. This participation amounts to more than 300 million euros every year. In addition, as reflected in the ERA Progress Report 2018, Spain participates in more than 50% of the European Strategy Forum for Research Infrastructure, very well known as EFRI project, and this currently included in the roadmap of 2018. Infrastructure in operation under construction on in the preparatory phase. Research infrastructure contribute to produce very high socioeconomic input, an impact in the region where they are located, as the mayor already mentioned. And as such, they are important not only as contributors to competitiveness, but also to the agendas for cohesion and integration. In this regard, Spain is strongly committed to the attraction of research infrastructure of main nodes of them to our territory. This is the case of e-science and technology, European infrastructure for biodiversity and ecosystem, but is very well known as LifeWatch. It is based in Seville. We are also in the final step for the creation of the European solar research infrastructure for concentrated solar power, that is called EU Solaris in Almería. Spain, through the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, hosts one of the Tier 0 nodes of PRACE, Partnership for Advanced Computing in Europe. And I think that I can also mention that on last Friday and today there is a conference press in Barcelona. The European Commission announced the Barcelona Supercomputing Center as one of the 3 sites in Europe to host world-class supercomputers, high-performance computer. This will support Europe's research, industry, and business. And also in developing new applications in a wide range of areas, including obviously astrophysics and big data analysis. I have also to mention the node of electron microscopy image processing of ISTRAC, the European research infrastructure in the domain of structural biology that is located in the National Center of Biotechnology, belonging also to the National Research Council. Spain was chosen after a very highly competitive selection process as the Northern Hemisphere site for the Cherenkov telescope array. All of you know that this will be installed in the Observatorio del Roque de los Muchachos in La Palma, in the Canary Island. And the Minister and myself had the pleasure to inaugurate the first of the 4 large telescopes, 23-meter diameter, in the core of the array. We are also working in the preparatory phase for the construction of the European Solar Telescope led by IC, and which will be constructed again in the Canary Islands. And finally, we are in Granada, and as the Mayor already mentioned, IFMIF-DONS project. This is the research infrastructure for the test of the material for the fusion reactors was selected for its inclusion in S3 Roadmap 2018. This is very important to impulse the construction of the infrastructure. IFMIF will be constructed in Escúzar, here in Granada, very close, I think 30 kilometers far away of Granada, something like that. And it's a clear example of the fruitful collaboration of the local, thank you, regional, thank you, in absence, and national administration. The research community, obviously, through the universities and research centers and the private sector in the so-called, in Spanish, la industria de la ciencia. Related to that, I'd like to mention that Granada will host, as already mayors mentioned, come on. You were reading my speech before? No. We'll host the second Big Science Business Forum on 6 to 9 October 2020, organized by the Center for Development of Industrial Technology, also belonging to the Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities. After the successful first edition in Copenhagen in 2018, Granada will be one-stop shop for European companies and other stakeholders to learn about Europe's big science organization, future investment and procurements worth billions of euros. The forum will offer the company the chance to learn about business opportunity in science. I wouldn't like to forget in this research infrastructure environment description the E-infrastructure, a complex integrated environment of interconnected layers that from the communication network, that is called high-performance computing, passing through intermediate layers responsible for authentication, authorization, and accounting processes. Also, digital repositories and information layer for operating the system and to provide services to user and the backbone for the excellent research production. Spain is pushing for the establishment of a solid e-infrastructure system at national level and is actively participating in the most important initiative in this sector as EOSC, Euro HPC, or Quantum Communication Initiative, among others. This week there will be a meeting in Bucharest and Spain is going to join the quantum communication infrastructure. Coming back to what joining us today, it is now 1 year since Spain became the 11th member of the Square Kilometer Array Organization. Spain has been participating since 1990 in SKA-related activities, and since 2011, the IAA is leading a solid scientific community, strategically positioned with the SKA and working in close collaboration with engineers and industry. Today, this project and the international governmental organization associated with it is a reality after the signing of the convention last March by the first 7 countries. Our intention is that this list could be enlarged in a near future with Spain joining the convention, and all of us need to work to achieve this purpose. I have to give thanks to the effort of many scientists and technicians all around the world, and to the perfect management of the project, directed by Philip Diamond in this occasion, we can say today. SKA represents a unique facility, an international project that will be, once built, the largest scientific facility of the planet. As our Minister of Science, Innovation and University already stated in the occasion of our section to the organization, SKA is a strategic investment for our country. Belonging to SKA allows Spain to participate in the construction of the observatory in the best condition, ensuring that the Spanish scientists have access to the best large-scale radio astronomy infrastructure, and that our industry is well positioned to compete in technology, development and construction contracts. Today, you start a 2-day program where we must look for synergies among the Spanish scientific community and different SKA working groups, discussing present collaboration and designing new ones. I'm convinced that this meeting will serve, first, to show our scientific and technical contribution to SKA, and of course, for take a step forward in the existing dialogue with the SKA project scientists in searching the best way to find valuable collaboration to facilitate our participation in this observatory. I hope it will lead to strengthening our community in the presentation of competitive proposal for the key science project and also for PI projects. But beyond these actions, we want to assure that Spain will continue to work on the fulfillment of our commitment to SKA in order to increase the relevance of the Spanish scientific community in this infrastructure. In the next future, with a new government and an approved state budget, its intention to support our national coordination in SKA through the Spanish National Research Council, and with a specific action to foster the presence of the activities of top-level Spanish scientists. Moreover, our ministry is already working towards increasing the presence of the Spanish community in this project. As an example, work performed in collaboration with IAA and CDTI has shown the Spanish industry is right now strategically positioned to achieve high-profile return and the required level in the short, mid, and long term. And I mention long term because SKA is planned to have a life extending at least 50 years, even longer than this. Some of the opportunities for Spain are in the areas of ICT or renewable energy, in which Spain is, allow me to say, is a world leader, or in big data and open science, all of them with clear indirect social impact, and where Spain has already shown a proactive and supportive role under the Horizon Europe in negotiation. It is important to remark the importance of the outreach of the project, of a project with the dimension of SKA, and we have expectation to generate in the general public as well as in the STEM vocations. And I mention this because in this sense I appreciate too much that there is a talk in the program about outreach and diversity at the SKA, an area in which this project is really going beyond. It is key and play a key role that this project reaches new students, boys and girls, from every age and every background in order to promote these scientific vocations. Before I conclude, I would like to thank again all the institutions and organizations and scientific personnel who are here today, and wish you a very success in this workshop. And as already the Mayor already mentioned, a very nice state in Granada, where I was born not many years ago, believe me. Okay. Muchas gracias.
Okay, thanks, Rafa. Okay, before closing this opening ceremony, let me wish you, all of you, a very fruitful meeting and very fruitful discussions along these 2 days. Welcome to Granada, and we are going to start with the scientific sessions.
Puntualidad, ¿no? Espero que se vaya. So good morning. We start now the scientific sessions of this meeting of Spain in SKA, finally. I'm chairing the session just before the coffee break, which is going to be an easy task because there will be no questions. So questions will be delayed to just before lunch. All questions will be made together just before lunch. So now the first speaker is, and I have to take my glasses off. It's a question of age, is going to be Phil Diamond, Director General of the SKA organization, who is going to talk about the SKA project.
Or maybe 5 minutes. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here at the IAA in Granada. In fact, a great pleasure to be here again in Spain. I do thank the Institute here for inviting me and my colleagues. I think there are 4 of us here from the SKA organization over the next couple of days. As you've just heard from Rafa Rodrigo and the mayor, Spain has a very proud history in science and in astronomy and in radio astronomy in particular. And it was with great pleasure last year that we welcomed Spain to be a formal member of the SKA organization. And as Rafa has just said, the intent is not to stop there, it's to build on this. The Spanish government has indicated to us that they wish to look at advancing into the SKA observatory, and it's my job to make that as smooth and as rapid as possible. But I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes giving you an update on an introduction to and an update on the SKA project. I'm not going to talk too much about the science because that is the purpose of this meeting. You will have other people who are expert in particular scientific areas talk about that. So I'll focus on the project as a whole. I only have about 20 minutes, and Lourdes gave me my instructions as to what subjects I should cover, so I am limited in my time. But just to put SKA in context, this is what the world will look like, the world of astronomy in the 21st century. And I'm sure you will recognize many of these facilities: LIGO, James Webb, ALMA, Athena, Cherenkov Telescope Array, which was just mentioned, the ELT, which is under construction, and at the radio frequency end of the spectrum, the SKA. These will be the pillars, the cornerstones of our science in this 21st century. And actually, I do wish I was a student starting out again with all of this coming. But I will be able to sit in my beach house and watch the science that's being done with these amazing facilities. And I think what is a true difference in our subject from the last century is that scientists will use these as a suite of instruments to really understand the physics of the objects that we study, indeed the physics of the universe itself. So we have moved and continue to move towards being true panchromatic astronomers, but we need to build the facilities in the particular wave bands to enable that to happen. So for the SKA, the key driver is, of course, science. And very modestly, the science goals of the SKA are nothing less than understanding the entire history of the universe, at least from that point 380,000 years after the Big Bang that we can see to. We can't see beyond that, as I'm sure you're aware. But the full range of science, and much of this will be discussed in the next 2 days, covers everything from the cosmic dawn through to the so-called cradle of life, which is more local to us here in the solar system. It also covers basic fundamental physics, general relativity, understanding the nature of gravity. And of course, we're building a facility, not an experiment, because there will be many, many things that SKA will discover that we don't know about at the moment. And so we have to design as flexible a facility as possible. So this is the full science range, and we never forget this. But in order to deliver on this science, we have a true global enterprise with, as of last year, 10 members of the organization, but now it's grown to 13. And you can see here in this bluish color the countries who are heavily involved, with a strong European involvement now. And I was really very pleased that in the last 12 months we welcomed Spain, France, Portugal, and very recently Germany into the SKA organization. That's the current not-for-profit company that is leading the design efforts of the SKA. So that is fantastic. And I would just like to say at this point, I would like to congratulate people here at the IAA, especially Lourdes, who led this whole scientific and industrial effort here in Spain to get this community this far. But heavily supported by Inmaculada in the central government, and of course many other people. But I see these two at almost every meeting I go to, and they really have done a fantastic job for you, the Spanish community. And so we're very much looking forward to, Spanish scientists have contributed heavily to the science case for SKA, and Spanish industry has contributed to the design, and we're hoping will contribute well to the construction. We are talking to other countries as well. Japan, South Korea, and Switzerland. And in fact, next week, our Swiss colleagues have a similar event to this in Bern, which I'll be attending. As Rafa mentioned a few minutes ago, on the 12th of March in Rome, we had a fantastic milestone for the project. And this was the signing of the treaty which will transform SKA from a not-for-profit company based in the UK to an international and intergovernmental organization. Very similar to ESO, CERN, ITER, and ESA. So the treaty has been signed. It is being by 7 countries. We hope more soon. It is being ratified in their parliaments or legislatures, and we hope by this time next year, the treaty will have been ratified and the SKA Observatory will exist. Now, it'll take us a few months from that moment to actually turn it into an operating entity, But I hope in a year from now we will have more press releases and announcements about the SKA Observatory existing. It is, I cannot emphasize how important that milestone was. So what will the SKA look like? We are spread across 3 sites. You'll see those in a moment, 2 telescopes plus a headquarters, but will act and operate as an integrated observatory. We're at the end of the major detailed design phase, which has been 6-7 years long, all focused on the construction of what we call phase 1 of the SKA, the first approximately 10% of our grand plan for the largest scientific infrastructure on the planet. Construction, we hope, will start at the end of 2020. Meerkat in South Africa, the 64 antenna Meerkat, will be fully integrated into SKA. We're trying to do all of this within a cost cap set by the board of just under 700 million euros. This is a challenge. Actually, the true cost is turning out to be closer to 870 million euros according to our current estimates, which is why I'm very keen on countries like Spain, France, Germany, Switzerland, etc., joining the project, bringing that additional resource to enable us to build the full phase 1 of the infrastructure. Phase 2, the longer-term future, will see of order 2,000 dishes across southern Africa and a massive expansion at our site in Western Australia. But that's for a little bit for the future. So this little cartoon here shows the two sites. So here in the remote desert of Western Australia, 800 kilometers from Perth, an area where we measure the population density in nano-humans per meter. There's an area there, the Shire is the size of the Netherlands with a population of 100 people, more or less. And in fact, it's decreasing because the young people, they don't want to live there. They want to live in the big cities and travel the world. So we're there because we want to get away from radio interference. What we will build in Western Australia is the low frequency array. I have some more up-to-date photographs in a minute, covering 50 to 350 megahertz with about 130,000 of these 2-meter tall antennas spread across 65 kilometers. In South Africa, in the Karoo, about 800 kilometers north of Cape Town, a similarly remote area, not quite as low a population density, but still very low compared to the Northern Hemisphere, we'll build almost 200 15-meter dishes, similar to those that you see in this animation, working up to 24 gigahertz and spread across 150 kilometers. So that's the plan. And there's also the headquarters, which has been built now at Jodrell Bank. This is our original building, and as you can see, we've expanded quite a lot recently. The building is complete. We've occupied it. And it was my ambition to turn this into a nexus for world radio astronomy, and I can see it happening. We have many groups wanting to come and meet in our building who are not actually formally associated with SKA. It's a great pleasure. On the sites already, there are these precursor telescopes. So this is an image of the core of Meerkat, which is in the science commissioning phase. Early science has been conducted, and I hope that Spanish astronomers are involved in Meerkat science teams and are beginning or soon will begin to receive data. This is a fantastic instrument. Again, it will be taken over by SKA. On the site, there's also the HERA, the Hydrogen Epoch of Reionization Array, which is an experiment focused on detecting the signal of reionization. That's still under construction. In Australia, Australian colleagues have built ASCAP, and this is the core of ASCAP. This is 36 12-meter diameter antennas as a control facility over there. This is now operational. And similarly, the Murchison Wide Field Array, which is about 6 kilometers away, is also operational. This is all powered by a solar power station. It's actually a hybrid diesel solar power, but the diesel is principally the backup mode. So this is also operational. SKA will need something about 3 times the size of this for the SKA low facility, which is about 14 kilometers away. This is one of the challenges of working in these remote areas. There's no power grid. We have to bring our own. So when we build the SKA, it will be, by some measure, the most powerful radio astronomy facility on the planet. So this is the current state of the art. This is a plot of sensitivity versus frequency. So LOFAR, the upgraded GMRT, the Jansky Very Large Array. These are the current state of the art. SKA Phase 1 will be somewhere between 5 and 10 times more sensitive than the current state of the art. I used to say I'd give my left arm for a factor of 3 sensitivity over the current facilities. And we're hopefully managing to achieve this without any surgery involved. And SKA Phase 2 will be a significant factor greater than SKA Phase 1, up to 100 times more sensitive than the current state of the art. So we're truly looking at a massive change in our capability. Just very briefly, these are the frequency bands. I won't spend any time on this, but if these slides I'm happy these slides be made available so you can look this up. Just to show there's real SKA hardware, not just precursor hardware, on the sites. This is in South Africa. So this is the first prototype SKA dish being erected on the site. Not the Meerkat dish, this is an SKA dish, which is slightly larger. It's 15 by 18 meters as opposed to 13.5 by 15 meters. It's 12 tons lighter and it's half the cost. These are lessons learned from building Meerkat, been incorporated into the SKA dishes. This one's entirely funded by the Max Planck Gesellschaft, which is, was interesting until the MPG joined SKA organization a few weeks ago. So the Italians are building the feed indexer, Swedes are building the low band receiver, South Africans the L-band receiver, the Canadians are building the correlator for boards or designing the correlator boards, and consortia are designing the software. These are all prototype systems that are already being deployed, which is fantastic. Similarly, in Australia, we have the so-called aperture array verification system, which is a prototype low-frequency array. Similarly, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand collaboration designing the correlator. And this is just from a few weeks ago. This is a new generation of low-frequency antennae. The ones behind were the second generation. This is the fourth. We don't talk about the third generation. That went down the wrong road. The fourth generation, which is probably pretty much what we will deploy. But that is a new system being tested right now. One of the major challenges, the hardware is almost the easy part. One of the major challenges is computing. The volumes of data that will flow from the two systems, they are actually greater than the total internet traffic on the planet. But we contain that within our own internal network. The data is processed on site, is correlated on site and transmitted to supercomputers in Perth and Cape Town, where the data is calibrated and imaged. But the astronomers won't actually touch the data at that point when we're in routine operation. That will be transmitted to the SKA regional centers, which are distributed around the globe. And so our plan is actually to have regional centers in North America, Europe, India, Asia, And this is how the astronomers will associate with the data, will interact with the data. So there's a lot of work going on planning these regional centres. It's still in its infancy, and Spain has a member on the SRC coordination committee, which is actually Lourdes. So this is something I think that Spain should be very interested in for the future, learning how to handle, process, visualize, data mine, extract science from these massive, massive volumes of data that SKA will be generating. This, the techniques involved will have societal benefit beyond just astronomy. Just very briefly, we have currently 13 science working groups, and I think there are Spanish members in 11 of them. It's always possible to get more, to join one of these working groups to understand more of what is going on in terms of the science development. So you can, if you go to our website, you can see how to join. The science working groups are planning the science program for SKA. They are looking at what key science projects might go onto the telescopes, but there's no guarantee that any science working group plan at the moment will translate into a key science project. We will not seek proposals for key science projects for some years yet, and I'll show you on the next slide when that might happen. So we anticipate that somewhere between 50 to 70% of the SKA observing time will be devoted to key science, the rest to PI, principal investigator-led science. And there'll be some open international time, the exact fraction to be decided. Just briefly, because Lourdes asked me to explain this on the science timeline. So what you have here is the date running from now, 2019, out to about 2030. Right now, we will have regular science meetings, key science project workshops. We've just run our first data challenge, and Anna Bonaldi will talk about that shortly. But then science commissioning, we hope, will start in 2023. And we will at that point be looking for volunteers, experienced interferometry people, to come and help us with the commissioning of the SKA. And if you do that, you will gain great knowledge about the SKA, which will benefit the exploitation. Science verification, once we've started commissioning, will happen a little later. And this is where we will do some shared risk observing. There may be publications coming out of this, but they will be open. The data will be open. But the formal shared risk principal investigator proposals will start when we have commissioned enough modes for the SKA. The actual construction will take about 7 years, but we will be phasing in the science once we have a significant number of antennas and hardware. Formal PI observations in 2028. And the key science projects, although we will start getting people involved here in 2024, the formal proposals won't happen till later. We've got to build it first before we can do that science. Very briefly on procurement, I've only got one slide after this. The procurement model for SKA is being decided right now. In fact, there's a key meeting. I think, Inma, you are calling into that meeting tomorrow to discuss the procurement model. That is, how will industry get access to contracts? We are developing our cost book and work breakdown structure. Some things will be identified as suitable for in-kind and others identified as suitable, preferred for cash to the organization. The model will be some mixture of the two. Countries that contribute money can expect that at least 70% of those contracts will return to their industry. This is a target that the governments have set us. It's a challenge, but that is our intent. And I emphasize this, and this is one of the reasons I think that Spanish government is looking at joining the observatory. The country needs to be a member of the observatory to gain maximum benefit once we issue the call for tenders and in some cases allocate the work. Those countries that have contributed funding naturally expect the contracts to come to their countries. So I think the sooner it's possible to get in there, the better. Here's the overall timeline. Here we're just about here now. We had the convention signing. We have the systems critical design review at the end of this year. Next year we hope the observatory exists. We will submit a construction proposal to the council, and then we hope to get construction approval at the end of that period. It would be wonderful, I think, if we'd done that, and it would be wonderful if Spain was able to join the organisation sometime in this period, and that, the observatory, and that would maximise the benefit to Spanish industry and to Spanish science. Thank you.
Spanish participation in SKA from this institute, from the IAA, and she's going to speak about the Spanish participation in the square kilometre array.
Good morning. Thank you, really, all of you, for being here today and tomorrow. But very special thanks to, I think, the people with the most tight agenda, who are Phil and Rafa. And it's also very nice to have Rafa here again, well, after so many years, from colleagues to this situation. So that's fantastic, and I really thank you for that. So I'm going to speak about this, what led us to this very nice picture that we got from the office the day we joined the SKA. We were celebrating in the patio here at the Institute with Phil, and well, you can recognize there also Juan de at the office. And well, I'm going to organize the talk in terms of how we are organized, the science and the technology. It will be a quick summary of the work of several years. As it was said before, there is participation in SKA from the Spanish community from many years ago. I just emphasize, for example, the participation in the SKA design studies in 2005 to 2009, and you will see this sidebar here, which represents the preparatory phase for SKA from 2008 to 2013, because 2013 is the year that marks the beginning of the design consortia, the international consortia, in which we had a Spanish participation, and this is where we are more or less today. So in 2010, the SKA project was prioritized at the then called MISIN, the ministry in that date, in the roadmap, and was funded from 2011 to 2014 by means of a scientific network led by José Carlos Guirado, who I'm not sure where he is now, but he's in the audience. And so he was leading this initiative, and organized also a meeting, a workshop from the RIA on the scientific and technical opportunities in the SKA area. In that time, it was very clear the interest from the scientific community, and in fact, the ministry requested the former SPDO, the SKA Project Development Office requested to join as an observer. So this happened as early as September 2011, and well, the situation in Spain, as you know, changed also, and things got frozen for a while. I wanted to mention that all SKA-related activities are in a regular basis reported to the RIA, to the advisory committee for the ministry, and in particular to the working group on radio astronomy. In 2011 as well started what was called the feasibility study of Spanish participation in the square kilometer array. That was led from here. I was the PI. It involved several Spanish institutions, and what started early as this feasibility study just in terms of industry and technology turned to be including a lot of activities that go from diffusion and organization of activities to support the community, organizing meetings and conferences that I'm going to summarize now, giving seminars in research centers, of course outreach talks to touch the general audience, to reach the general audience and explain the project. And we have been also supporting both academic and industry groups and the ministry when we were requested to do so. So we have been interacting literally with all the design consortia in a very direct way with the SKA office, diffusing all calls for funds, potential funds for the community, and supporting as much as we could participation of Spanish both scientists and engineers in different kind of working groups. We also performed the original goal of these funds that ended in 2014, but the activities have continued till today. Prepared the industry capacity map that we are now working on and improving with led now by CDTI. And of course, all this time discussing with different SKA-related stakeholders. In terms of science, I think it can be summarized very briefly. In 2015, the Spanish White Book was published with a number of chapters written by 120 researchers from 40 centers, gathering all the scientific areas that were of interest for the Spanish community, where we thought we could make really important contributions. This was a great effort led by Miguel Pérez Torres. And also I have to emphasize that in 2014, the book for the update of the science, the SKA science, was published after 10 years of the previous book, which was called Advancing Astrophysics with the SKA, 2014, and 10% of the chapters had a Spanish contribution, including some first authors in there. But the way to prepare for SKA is not only saying what science we like to do, is also preparing with what is available now, and what we have now is a great list of Pathfinder and Precursors telescopes. Pathfinders are those that pave the way for technology, and Precursors are those that are located at the place where the SKA is going to be built, like Meerkat, ASCAP, and Murchison Wide Field Array, and all the others are Pathfinders. But this is, of course, not a complete list. What the message I want to give here and for this meeting is that these instruments are crucial for the SKA preparatory work, and this is just a not complete list of large programs from these instruments, these telescopes, in which there is participation of the Spanish community. So you can see from ASCAP, Mongoose, Apertif, etc. But this is, as Phil said, this is not only for radio astronomers, and I just wanted to put here an example that is very familiar for the Spanish community. What you can see here is the image of a galaxy, and the red contours are the H1 emission, the atomic gas emission, and the little yellow circle represents the area covered here, which is the derivation of the full star formation history of a galaxy using Khalifa data that you also know well. A large program being done that has been done at Calar Alto at the 3.5 meter telescope. So it's a combination of 3D information from the optical, but with an angular resolution of 2 arcseconds. And unfortunately, in radio astronomy, because of the wavelength, we cannot go beyond 15 arcseconds if we want to compare the atomic gas, the neutral gas, with the stellar population. So, however, with SKA1 MIT, we are going to reach 3 arcseconds in 10 hours. So this is really the moment in which we are going to be able to match the information from the optical and the H1. And a very nice example that this is real, that these things are generating synergies is the WIF apertive survey that combines, will combine spectroscopical data from the William Herschel spectrograph and data from the apertive Pathfinder instrument in the Netherlands. Things we have done so far is the organization of workshop conferences and meetings. An early example is a visit that we organized for the SKA office in order to show them the potential, as Rafa said, in renewable energies in Spain. So they visited the Abengoa facilities, and I remember that they were quite impressed by that. We also organized a meeting as soon as we started the VIA SKA project in order to inform in a lot of detail, with much detail, the industry. So we put together in the same sessions engineers from academia already involved in activities preparing for design, so industry could see really why we were interested in participating in this project. And already 5 years from now, more or less, we had here at the Institute the Spanish SKA Day, the first Spanish SKA Day. And this was the first time that we put together scientists and engineers from academia and from industry. And I think it was a very, very fruitful meeting. And I have to say here, we have our friend Jordi Torra. In 2016, CDTI organized an industry day in which we had a very strong collaboration from the SKA office with participation, of course, of field and also participation of leaders of consortia. And a visit was organized to the Plataforma Solar de Almería in order again to illustrate the capacity of Spain in that area. In July 2016, we had in the SEA meeting, we had a plenary special session on SKA where also Phil was present and gave a talk. And I think that this date, November 2017, marks the dates in which we could welcome to the SKA Spanish community, the particle physics community, where we also had Phil, we also had Carmen Vela, and this, I think, was the turn point where all the approach of Spain to join the SKA happened. And there was also a meeting on fundamental cosmology with talks related with the SKA. This has been increasing, and we are here today in this workshop where I just wanted to summarize very briefly the focus of the meeting. We are going to have a plenary session. The one we are now is a general perspective of SKA both in Spain and in general at international level. As Isabel said, the questions for this session will happen a bit later because we think that there will be common questions for the different talks. And a review of the potential of SKA for different scientific areas, as well as a talk by Mathieu Isidro on outreach and diversity at the SKA, the great job they are doing there. And tomorrow we will have an introduction to the data challenges, but most of the time we will spend in 3 parallel sessions in which we are going to explore the synergies between projects going on in our community, both from the point of view of radio astronomy and other wavelengths, because at the end that's only wavelength. We are speaking about science. And I want just to emphasize, we have 82 participants from 18 Spanish institutions and 6 international institutions, so this is a very nice coverage of the community. And I don't want to say more about the meeting because we have to run it. We have members from Spain in a lot of SKA committees. The main one, the Spanish delegation, Immaculada, as a member of the SKA board. Also participation in the board of the design consortia, and the communications and steering committee, in the power supply option working group to prepare to study solutions for this big bottleneck of supplying power to this large infrastructure. Javier is acting as a liaison for industry for Spain. Our mechanical engineer, Miguel Ángel Sánchez, he was invited for a critical design review panel for the DIS consortium. And in particular, myself, I was in the SRC, in the SKA Regional Center Coordination Group and the steering committee now. This is just the list of participants in SKA Science Working Group. So we have now 34 people, 34 researchers from 12 Spanish institutions in 11 out of the 13 working groups, 2 of us acting as co-chairs. The blue ones are the incorporations from about the last year. This is not the only page, we have another one. And I want to emphasize that there is a new group, and what we were speaking yesterday is that it's very nice when things run on their own, and I discovered we have 2 members, Spanish members, as soon as this committee started to work. So this is great. These 2, extragalactic spectral line and solar and heliospheric physics, are the only ones in which we don't have Spanish participants. The participation at the design phase, which is about to finish, is described here by these sketches correspond to the different consortia to design the SKA, and there where you see a flag is where we negotiated and got participation from 12 Spanish research centers and 12 companies in 8 of these pre-construction consortia. But to show it in a more explicit way, I list here the participants. Is this a pointer? El de abajo. Okay, a bit late, but okay. So these are the institutions that participate in the infrastructure: DISH, telescope manager, synchronization and data transport, central signal processor, science data processor, and phase array feeds. These are formal members, and in grade we have companies who couldn't join formally the consortia because of the rules of each consortium, but have also participated in them in areas like receivers, distribution of time, or advanced analysis tools. But the present is that now we are in the phase of bridging, the phase that fills the gap left in the design and preparing everything for construction. We are starting this phase, and now we have a participation of the University of Granada and our institute. So regarding the industry capacity map, I don't, of course, pretend any of you to read this table, but this table represents a matrix where this vertical column corresponds to different technologies, and this horizontal one corresponds to Spanish companies. So in 2013, we prepared this capacity map matching the expertise of Spanish companies with the different technological areas of SKA. All this has evolved a lot, and now with the initiative of the CDTI, all this expertise is being revised, new companies identified, and also we are responding to requests from SKA in order to express the interest of Spain in different areas of construction in which we think we have strong capacity to contribute. We don't forget communication. In fact, you can see we are very efficient in communicating because we have a Twitter of Rafa Rodrigo today, opening the session. We are a member, as I said, of the SKA Communication Network, and this means that we participate in the strategic communication plan of the SKA office. We translate press release. We are present in social networks, or many of you have seen or received the calendar where one of the pages was dedicated to Spain. And these are numbers from 2016, but the Spanish web, we are very proud to say that this part of the cheese corresponds to the general SKA page, but all the others are the pages from individual countries, and the most visited one was the Spanish one. Just to finish, my very last slides are the milestone we have achieved. So the ministry started to be invited as observer in SKA board since October 2013. The participation in the design consortia was already valued in about 2 million euros in kind in 2014, and this was coming from projects from the community. This was not money specific for SKA, but money coming from different projects, because the community, we really found that we wanted to be part of this project, even using funds that were consistent with the aim of the consortia. In December 2015, the Carmen Vela sent a letter to Phil, and this continued in 2018 with the official request for Spain to become a member of the SKA. So now we are part of this map. We are the 11th member. We didn't stop since then. I mentioned here the Severo Ochoa project, but you will hear a bit more in Susana's talk after 2 talks later. I just mentioned it because there is an important activity as part of the Severo Ochoa program of the IAA, which is to include prototyping activities for hosting an SKA regional center. At the opening of this year's SEA meeting, there was the celebration of the incorporation of Spain to the SKA. And we have been now attending the boards as members, not as observers, all these 3 boards since Spain joined as associate member. And also we were invited in May 2019 to participate in this signing ceremony, and where we really felt that we wanted to be there signing at some point. March? March? Oh yes, right. But we felt we were the best. So just my last slide is the past and the present, the previous activities. All this has been achieved because we have the community working together with engineers and industry, and locating the niche, these areas in which we think we can perform key contributions, both in terms of science and engineering. We have been continuously communicating the project to the society. And what I would say is the future, I think we can agree on that, is we are going to keep working to identify the best way to contribute to the next stage, to the SKA Observatory. Today and tomorrow will be the future already. We are starting to work on that. We want to play a major role in the SKA science project, but also to identify where we can perform key contributions in the current phase, in the bridging phase, in the advanced instrumentation program, but also to maximize return in construction. So we want to identify those areas where we can larger impact in terms of contribution to construction and in society. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lourdes. Next speaker is Javier Echavarri, Industrial Liaison Officer for ISO and SKA from the CDTI, who is talking about Spanish industry involvement in square kilometer array and prospects for construction.
Es el PDF. Claro, te pongo la otra que más cómodo. ¿Cómo lo paso con el teclado? Mira. Tienes el teclado y aquí tienes el puntero, ¿ves? Pero casi pónmelo grande para que lo vea más grande esto.
Ah, sí.
En la pantalla está.
Es que está medio. Está en modo presentación.
Pues
para ver la siguiente, ¿se puede?
Ponlo en el PDF si quieres. Bueno, déjalo así, vale, sí, es igual. Sí, nada, es igual.
Flecha arriba y abajo, y este último es el puntero, ¿vale?
O sea, para pasar, arriba.
Creo que es. No pasa, ¿no?
No,
Entonces quizás le tenga que dar adelante.
con las teclas, ¿no? Vale. Oops. Hello, good morning to all, and thank you for the invitation. I would like to thank the Institute of Astrophysics of Andalucía for inviting me to this presentation. I am very happy to be here, and I'm going to talk about the Spanish industry contributions for SKA and all the experience that we have in our industry community in different fields related to SKA, the activities that our industry has carried out, and what is our prospects for construction in SKA. I would also like to thank the RIA and also, of course, the representatives from the SKA organization for being here and listening to my talk. So first I'm going to talk about who is CDTI, the organization that I belong to, so that you know what we do, how we are involved with Spanish industry, and what we do in the area of astronomy and big science organizations. One of our missions now is organizing the Big Science Business Forum Congress, which Rafa Rodrigo mentioned, and also the mayor, and I will talk about it later. I want to talk about the experience of Spanish industry related to the construction of SKA. And mainly this experience comes from our experience in radio astronomy, in our contributions for ALMA when Spain became member of ESO. But not only ALMA, but also the work that we have done for the space sector and for other big science organizations, which is transferable to SKA. In CDTI, also in my organization, we have some tools which are useful for industry to become to acquire the capacities to work for SKA, to become technically prepared, and I will explain what we are doing and how we are working with certain companies to get them ready and prepared to be competitive to work for SKA. And then I will explain the expectations that we have, and mainly this will be a summary of the last response we answered to the SKA organization, the last request for information concerning the work packages in which Spanish industry can be competitive to work in. And finally, the Big Science Business Forum. So I work in CDTI. CDTI is the Center for the Development of Industrial Technology. Oops, sorry. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. I am the Industry Liaison Officer, which is nominated by our ministry for SKA. And in our agency, what we do is we have a series of financial instruments which foster the competitiveness of Spanish industries and which try to get industry ready to be more competitive through some funding tools for R&D and innovation projects. So here you can see some of the numbers. Over the years, we have had more than 13,000 beneficiaries, 25,000 million euros total funding, which comes partly direct funding that goes directly to our companies and indirectly through the activities that we do to increase the return from international funding programs like Horizon 2020, return from ESA, etc. Oops. So these are the figures from the last year. We had more than 700 billion euros funding since 2018, 160 for innovation, 100 in venture capital. Then we have the figures for internationalization, and finally, our third activities is based on consultancy and services. So this is basically what we do at CDTI. We're focused on promoting research, development, and innovation of Spanish companies. And we also work closely with INMA's team promoting the Spanish industry to participate in the tenders of big science facilities. So currently we are industry liaison officers for the main organizations in particle physics, mainly CERN, ESRF, XFEL, ESS, and ILL. Fusion, basically fusion for energy and ITER organization. And in astronomy, I am the industry liaison officer for ESO and SKA. More or less, the market investment in these organizations is estimated approximately in 12,000 million euros in the 4 upcoming years. I think in this figure, the numbers from SKA are not included. So it's a big market for our companies. It's a market in which usually companies come from another sector, for example, from the space sector or from other high technology sectors. And it is very interesting for industry. What we do as an industry liaison officer? Well, we have a threefold activity. First of all, we work towards the research infrastructures. And basically our task here is to help the research infrastructures in their market survey activities. So in this sense, we're going to work with SKA to help them identify which Spanish companies can do which tasks for the SKA constructions. So then to achieve this, we have regular meetings between the ILOs and the procurement offices. We advise research infrastructures on national industrial capacities. Then our second mission is toward the national industry, of course, and we perform industry engagement through promotion activities. We organize industry days. Sometimes we even organize visits to research organizations. We support R&D projects, I will mention later, that help the industry to become ready for when the tenders appear, when they are published. We assist the companies when they are preparing a tender, and we help them. And we also follow up awarded contracts to identify problems, to see how, for example, a Spanish company could become a subcontractor in another contract, etc. And finally, toward the Spanish administration, we advise the Spanish delegation on industry-related matters. We help the committees in some, we participate in some committees as experts, in particular in finance committees. We also advise the national strategy when we have to define in-kind contributions, which could be the case for SKA. And finally, when there is proposals to build research infrastructures in Spain, like the case of Dones here in Granada, we work in all the preparation of the industrial capacities portfolio. Here you can see the industrial return in astronomy during the recent years. The total return for Spanish industry and big science organizations has been approximately 1,400 million euros since 15 years ago. And in astronomy, in ESO, we have achieved approximately 45 million euros of return. At the beginning, in the first years, the return came mainly from ALMA, the radio telescope which is in Chile and which is operational. And in the last years, the return has increased due to our contracts in the ELT, in the extremely large telescope. As you know, Spain joined the ESO in 2006. And when we joined ESO, we won a number of contracts, partly through in-kind contributions and partly competitive contributions, which has made Spanish industry very competitive to work for SKA. So, for example, in RF technologies, we have had a number of companies which have developed, for example, cryogenic low-noise amplifiers, TTA Norte plus Lleves Observatory, which makes them very competitive to work for SKA in different bands. And then, for example, Abengoa or Das Photonic, which developed a local oscillator which provided the reference signal to test ALMA front ends. These are contributions which made these companies grow, which made these companies have references in radio astronomy, and which, of course, they are very interested in continuing their work for SKA. But not only in RF technologies, also, for example, in manufacturing of large structures and precision machining. There we have a very, very good reference, which is the work carried out by Asturfeito, which is a Spanish company based in Asturias, which manufactured all the mounts that were manufactured in Europe for ALMA, in total 25 radio telescope mounts, as well as several references, for example, for VLBI antennas, and they also built the mount for the LSST telescope. And then other references which are very interesting, for example, in ALMA also we had a company, Sener, which built the amplitude calibration robotic arms for ALMA, 70 units, development of steel structures, and Schwarz-Haumont built some other antennas for ISO, Gran Tecan, Instituto Geográfico Nacional. And then we have smaller companies, more SMEs, which could collaborate with these companies in forming consortia to build or to partly build some of the antenna mounts for SKA. So these are references which I believe could be very useful. In infrastructure in ALMA, we also had a couple of important projects, mainly a multi-fuel power plant, which was built by the Spanish company SKA, and also some experience building helium lines for cryogenics in the ALMA construction. There are also important references, not only in ALMA, but which are important in vacuum and cryogenics. I would have to highlight here the experience that we have building cryogenic systems for different instrumentation, for Gran Tecan instruments or for other instruments in different installations. And also the institutes, IA's institutes for Cármenes, which is an instrument which is in Calar Alto, in which there has been specific collaborations with Spanish companies, for example, Fractal, for example, Proactive, which is another Spanish SME, and other companies coming from the space sector, which also have developed cryogenics for different ESA missions, or cryogenics, vacuum chambers, for example, for other big science installations. So this experience coming from the space sector, from collaboration with institutes, and from cryogenics and vacuum systems for other big science installations, I think is very relevant also for SKA. And in the space sector, which is very important in Spain, there are also numerous references more in the software side. For example, in distributed control architectures, we have companies which have developed distributed software systems for installations. We have GMV, which has prepared data processing frameworks for different missions, ESA missions. And then references for RF and electronics, not only the references that we have for radio astronomy, but also for other ESA missions, both embedded systems, both the RF front ends, onboard electronics. All these references, I think, are very valuable, and these companies are interested. And finally, synchronization. Here in synchronization, we have a small SME, which is 7 Solutions, based in Granada, a spin-off of the University of Granada, which has been pioneer developing the White Rabbit technologies, which was invented by CERN. So this company also is very active and is investing a lot, and hopefully we want to see them working for SKA also in the timing and synchronization domain. So in CDTI, what we try to do is we try to inform all the industry of the opportunities that we have, and what we do is that we publish a catalog with all the capacities that we have. We used to do it separated by areas, astronomy, fusion, and particle physics, but now we have decided to focus more on big science as a market, so we have a catalog which gathers all the experiences all together. And the last edition is from 2017. In CDTI, in our center, we also have some tools which help the companies get ready to prepare tenders for big science facilities. For example, we provide funding tools to prepare the tenders, and we also have R&D projects which usually come like 2-3 years before the tender is published, and which help the company get ready to develop their technical capabilities. In particular, for SKA, we have funded 3 projects, one in RF technologies for Band 5, another to 7 Solutions to develop their second version of White Rabbit switches to be ready for the procurements, and a final one which is not completely closed, but it's more for the SDB consortium to develop the data models to be able to perform open science in the SKA regional centers. And we are also launching a pre-commercial procurement scheme in CDTI. And this scheme, what we want to do is use European funds, ERDF funds, to get Spanish industry to develop prototypes, take them from low TRLs to high TRLs, and then CDTI would publish a tender, and we would be able to hand that prototype to a public administration which would validate the technology which are developed in that prototype. So currently we are analyzing how can we use this instrument with the ERDF funds for SKA, mainly for receivers, to try to test SKA receivers in order to have maybe different designs or concepts which would save some costs to the SKA organization, and which would help us position our industry to access some receivers contracts. Well, this is basically what Lourdes included in her talk. For a number of years, the IAA was leading the industrial involvement for the SKA project through the Via SKA project. Then we had several industry days. The last one was in CDTI in February 2016. We were in BSBF 2018 with quite a number of Spanish companies which had meetings with SKA representatives. And we answered the RFI of last year involving Spanish industry. So today, these are what we believe on the basic or the major strengths of Spanish industry to work in SKA constructions. The first one is, as I already mentioned, in synchronization, in time and frequency synchronization, where we have the main actors, 7 Solutions and the University of Granada. 7 Solutions is improving their technology thanks to the support of CDTI through their funding instruments, and they are also taking part in one of the bridging activities. But not only these companies are interested, we have other companies like Orbital, like Thales, etc. In receivers, specifically in Band 5, there are several prime contractors who are interested in accessing these contracts, and they are able to collaborate with institutes. They are able to work with SMEs which are active in the area of vacuum and cryogenics, and they are able to perform end-to-end system engineering. So the capabilities are there. We have also supported one of the R&D projects to develop an alternative for the low noise amplifiers of Band 5 for SKA. And as I said, we're exploring the possibility of using pre-commercial procurement to have a complete prototype to test the technology. These structures, this comes as a result as our experience from ALMA. We have strong experience in building and manufacturing large structures, as I mentioned before. And this is backed up by our experience in ALMA, the building of all the antennas which were manufactured in Europe. And the same as before, we could build a nice consortia which could gather large companies and companies which have the means to build, but also smaller companies which do precision machining combined with institutes. In SDP, we also have several companies which are working, and we would also benefit from the involvement of the Institute of Astrophysics of Andalusia and pre-construction activities. We are supporting one of the companies, GMV, to build the data module, as I mentioned, to be able to reproduce open science at the SKA regional centers. And not only the frameworks, but we are also interested in core development. So this is also an area in which Spanish industry is strong. In all the activities regarding telescope management and control, we also have companies which have capabilities. We had projects, for example, to develop a scheduler for CTA, which was funded by CDTI. And we also have a solid implementation of agile methodology. So we think this is an area in which we are strong as well. And finally, as it was mentioned before, in infrastructure, Spanish industry is a leader in the deployment of renewable energies, in particular photovoltaic plants, and we have several top-notch companies. There have been 2 RFIs issued by the office, one in 2017 for power solutions in South Africa, and a recent one in Australia. And in the recent one, we had 2 companies which answered the tender, which were Nº1, a company belonging to CAF, and Polar DV, which is a smaller company. So this was an RFI, very far still from the procurement phase, and there was quite some interest. And finally, the Big Science Business Forum, as it was mentioned, this is a very big event which is going to take place in Granada from 6 to 9 October of 2020. And we're going to have all these research organizations, and we're very happy that SKA has accepted our invitation to be a guest member in BSBF 2020. We were very, very insistent with the organizing committee that SKA had to be there because the timing matches exactly the timing of SKA construction, and also the investments of SKA are going to be very relevant and open to quite a lot of European countries. So we hope to see you all in Granada in 1.5 years. So as a conclusion, I would say that we are very engaged, both the ministry and CDTI, in involving our industry for SKA. And there is a strong industrial base, very interested in working for this project, backed up by our references from radio astronomy, instrumentation, other big science organizations in space. And I would say that it is key to ensure that we have collaborations, both with consortia from other countries and also with institutes. This is very important. And here you can see all the most important companies which are showing interest and which are working with us together to engage industry for SKA construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javier. Next speaker and last of this session before coffee break is Susana Sánchez Espósito from the IAA, who is the leader of the technical Proto SKA Regional Center. So she's going to talk about the SKA Science Regional Centers. Susana, te hago seña cuando te falten 5 minutos.
Spoiler. Well, hi all. Here I'm going to talk about sorry, the SKA Science Regional Centers, and also I would like to describe the activities that we are carrying out here in the Institute in order to develop a SKA Regional Center prototype. The SKA is an instrument that is going to produce huge amount of data. The challenge of extracting scientific knowledge from this huge amount of data will be addressed by the SKA regional centers. These centers will be distributed around the world, and it will be located at the end of the SKA data path. So first, the signal generated by the antennas, by the SKA antennas, will be gathered by the central signal processor, and then will be correlated and combined, and the result will be sent to the science data processor, which will be in charge of generating different kind of data products that are suitable, that are useful for different kind of science research. The two instances of science data processor, two instances of SDPs, one in Australia and the other in South Africa, will generate a total amount of 600 of petabytes per year. This means that each of these instances will generate more data than, for example, the data uploaded to Facebook in 2017, and also an amount of data much larger than the data produced by the Large Hadron Collider in 2017. The SDP includes a long-term preservation component to store these data products, and also the SDP will make available this data product to the outside world, but the SKA observatory will not provide the SKA community with access to the data. It will be the SKA regional centers which provide access to the data and provide the tools and the processing power required to analyze this data. Which characteristics should this SKA regional center have? This question, the SKA regional center coordination group addressed this question. This group was appointed by the SKA board in 2016 in order to elaborate requirements for a center to be considered a SKA regional center. Among the members of this group, we can find Lourdes as an external advisor. This group proposed a model of a network of SKA regional centers which provide the SKA community with access to the data and also access to the tools and processing power required to generate the advanced data products and analyze these data products. The centers needs to be accredited by the SKA observatory in order to be part of this network. This coordination group, proposed this model for several reasons. One of them is because the data product generated by the SDP is so large that it's not possible to send them directly to the users. Second is because these data products are not in a final state, they are not ready for scientific analysis. And third is because the SKA community is globally distributed. So a network of SKA regional center can improve the collaboration of this community. For this, we can say that the SKA regional center is the core of the SKA science. And in addition to provide the computational capacity for processing the science data the data products, and also the storage capacity for archiving these data products, the SKA regional center should provide the user support in order to enable the scientific exploitation of the SKA data. Also, this SKA regional center needs to facilitate the generation of the long-term curation of the advanced data products. With this, I mean they need to facilitate gathering the provenance information, the metadata required to support the scientific analysis. In general, the SKA regional center will provide all the tools and the infrastructure to support data-intensive research in astronomy. Well, the SKA regional center will address the challenge of extracting scientific knowledge from huge and very complex data volumes, and also supporting a community which is globally distributed. This is a situation that is shared by different disciplines, in particular data-intensive disciplines. For example, in 2017, the SKA and CERN signed an agreement in order to collaborate on areas of extreme scale computing. And it's true, we need new technologies, new big data technologies or data-intensive technologies for achieving an efficient exploitation of the distributed computing infrastructure, but we need more. We need to facilitate an effective collaboration of the SKA community. We need new ways to share the scientific knowledge, innovative ways of sharing the scientific knowledge. We need tools to enhance the scientific collaboration, platforms to share the data, the methods, and scientific knowledge. So all of this is about e-science and open science. And I would like to highlight here that in order to address this challenge, is needed a global shift in research practices, not only in astronomy, but also in other disciplines. But we need to remember that SKA will be the greatest data research public project, so I guess that the SKA community will play a major role in this change. Different initiatives are designing SKA regional center. For example, in Europe, the H2020 project, AENEAS, is designing the European SKA regional center as a federated network of nodes, of European nodes. In Canada, we have the CIRADA project. Also, the Eridanus is a joint initiative between Australia and China. And in South Africa, we have IDEA. IDEA is the South African precursor of SKA regional center that currently is providing support to the MERCAT community. MERCAT, you already know that is one of the SKA precursors telescopes, and SKA Pathfinder and precursor telescope, as Lourdes said, is going to play a crucial role for preparing the SKA community to analyze the data, and also will play a major role in defining the SKA regional centers. There are different committees that are defining the SKA regional center. The SKA Regional Center Coordination Group that I mentioned before. This group finished its work in few months ago, and this work will be continued by the SKA Regional Center Steering Committee. This committee is formed by members from different countries that are developing SKA Regional Center prototypes. Among the members, we can find Lourdes, which was nominated by the ministry as a Spanish representative. And one of the tasks of this committee is to build the first global prototype SRC network. As I said before, here in the institute, in the IAA, we are developing a prototype of SKA Regional Center. This work is part of the Severo Ochoa program of this institute, and we want to develop this prototype fully engaged with open science. For this work, we are going to leverage the IAA expertise in different disciplines, in radioastronomy, for sure, of course, and also in e-science and open science. We are also leverage the expertise that we have been gathering as member of different committees, the coordination group, and also the steering committee. We have been a member of the STP consortium, and also we are members from different projects related with the SKA regional centers. And also we are in a very good position as a coordinators of the Spanish participation in the SKA in order to gather the national community. This is going to help us to develop this prototype as a transversal facility for all the community. The IAA is a pioneer in application of e-science to radioastronomy. We developed the first VO model for radio data in 2009, and also we led a regional project, the eCiencia Andaluza project, in 2007. This project, eCiencia Andaluza, gathered different groups from different disciplines. We are convinced that cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary collaboration is the best way to do science. So we have been involved in different projects cross-disciplinary. For example, this one, the FP7 project, the Advanced Workflow Preservation Technologies for e-science. This project contribute to define the research object concept. This is a basic tool for open science, and the developments were guided by a use case in astronomy, led by us, and a use case in biology. The Institute has been in contact with a Spanish expert in e-science. We participate in the Spanish e-science network, and also we participate in the grid TESIC project, installing and developing a grid node here in the Institute, and we were integrated, this node was integrated in Ibergrid. Then different national grants fund our research on achieving a efficient exploitation of distributed computing infrastructure in collaboration with, for example, the Barcelona Supercomputing Center and the Supercomputing Center in Castilla y León, and also funds our contribution to the SKA design. Finally, we participate in the project calibration of LOFAR LI's N1 data in Amazon Cloud. This was jointly funded by Amazon and by the SKA organization. This project was led by Pepe Sabater, who is a former member of this institute. In order to this project, the aim of this project was to test different cluster platform, grid platform, in order to study the suitability of this infrastructure for analyzing data from LOFAR. We participate in different projects related with the SKA Regional Center. I mentioned before Aeneas. Also, we led the SK-Link project, which is an iLink project funded by CSIC. In this project, we gathered key members of the SKA community and also experts of e-science technologies in order to create a set of best practices for the SKA regional centers on the use of technologies that facilitate the scientific reproducibility. We also are members of the ESCAPE consortium. This is a H2020 project that gathers the European ESFRIs in astronomy and particle physics in order to address the challenge of the open science. Well, this is the objective for our prototype, for our SKA regional center prototypes. The first objective is to perform the first steps to be accredited as a SKA regional centers. We also want to strengthen the scientific activities related to SKA and its precursors. And also, as I said before, the open science is a very useful tool for in data-intensive research. So we are going to embrace open science, and we want to build this prototype as a transversal, wavelength agnostic facility. Well, first we need to start identifying the requirements that guide our developments to transform this prototype into a full SKA regional center. First, we need to implement those requirements that are related with the SKA precursors labs programs, but also we are going to put a special effort to prioritize also needs that are especially transversal. Also for this work we are collaborating, we want to collaborate with different institutions. In particular, we want to create this prototype in partnership with national computing facilities. Previously, we have been collaborating with Barcelona Supercomputing Center and also with the Supercomputing Center in León. And we have contact recently with the University of Málaga, which is also part of the Red Española de Supercomputación. Also, we have signed an agreement with IDEA, that I said before, this is the South African precursor of SKA Regional Center, in order to collaborate in prototyping activities related with the data transfer system or the data management system. Recently, we have been contacted by the EGI technical director together with other institutions, including IFCA, in order to build a demonstrator of a federated cloud approach that help us to collaborate in the framework of SKA Pathfinder Labs program. And finally, we participate in the proposal to create the Spanish network on open science led by Ignacio Blancler from the University of Valencia. For this work, we need to create a science analysis platform that provides the computing and storage resources for the data analysis and archiving. We need to set up different resources here at the Institute, but our intention is to build this platform in partnership with other computing facilities, and also connect this platform with other European infrastructure and also with other SKA regional center prototypes. Main task here is to develop a science gateway, which is a layer that integrates all these different resources in order to facilitate the use of these resources. Then we want to populate this platform with tools that are able to support the community in open science. We need to populate with tools that enhance how we share the data, how we use the computing infrastructure. We want tools that increase the usability of the methods, of the scientific methods running in this platform, and also tools for enhancing collaboration with other teams. So our vision of the goals of the SKA Regional Center prototype, we share this vision with the international prototype activities and also with the steering committee. We want to contribute to build the first global prototype SKA Regional Center network. Also, we want that this prototype will be a wavelength agnostic facility. We want to provide tools for increase the reusability of the SKA data, providing, for example, IVA services in order that the SKA regional center data will be VO compliant. Also, we want to share the infrastructure with other disciplines and provide a collaborative software platform that can interoperate with other SRCs. And finally, I would like to conclude saying that this SKA regional center prototype is a necessary step to develop the capacity to host in the future a full SKA science regional center. And also I would like to say that we are fully aware that the SKA will be a game changer in the way in which we do science, and we want to participate, contribute to this change in the very front row. And that's all.
Thank you very much. The next thing to do is just to have a coffee, which is quite important. And yeah, and Susanna needs to say something, but just before she says what she needs to say, the coffee. I mean, we will be back from coffee at 12 instead of 5 to 12. Okay, just to absorb the delay. So next, some announcements.
For the logistics, here we are using Nº1 Wi-Fi. If you have problems connecting to this Wi-Fi, please tell us to the local organization, to Sebastian or Anchor that is around the audience there. Also, we would like to invite you to comment this meeting in Twitter. We are using the hashtag SKA Spain, so please send comments, and this is always good. And I would like to remember that this afternoon at 6 we have a cocktail at the Palacio Quinta Alegre. The idea is that we go all together from IAA to walking from here to the Palacio. But also if you want to go on your own, you can find a map in your folder of the registry, and also here. This is an interactive map that you can use. And I don't know if I have some. Sorry. Well, the coffee and lunch is in the patio out there. And here now, during this coffee break, we are going to take the photo of the meeting. So please don't go away until we take the photo. Thanks.